Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Online Smicha. Sometimes when you have a difficult halacha, the best thing is just to read it as it is from the Shulchan Aruch. And a lot of questions are clearly described as a situation in the Shulchan Aruch. And sometimes you have to be maven davar miteich davar. Compare a case that's happening by you to a case in Shulchan Aruch. But here, there is a common thing that people go shopping and you're not happy with the product. Not happy with the product means, okay, I want to look for a different one. That's dependent on what the minhag Medina is, if you can return it or not, if there's a return policy, so on. But what happens if you buy a product and you're happy with the product, in the sense that this is what you want, but you come home and you see it's defective. You see there is something wrong with it. So obviously, if it's a bad mum, something that's not supposed to be, then you could return it because the sale is invalid. The sale is a mekach tos. If it all goes as well, every sale is final. As long as you make a kinyan, the sale is final. But if you find out there was something wrong, there's a defective product, then it's a mum. A mekach, then it makes the whole sale as a mekach tos as a mistake. So here is a very interesting thing that's mentioned in Shulchan Aruch. Somebody went shopping in a grocery store, or back then it wasn't a grocery store. Back then it was, you went to the farmer, and the farmer had milk, and you bought some milk, and you bought some cheese. So in Choshen Mishpat, Siman Reish Lamed Beis, Seif Tez Zayin, the Mechaber says like this: Reuven shemachar l'Shimon gvinos. Reuven sold some cheese to Shimon. Ulachar shloisha yamim. So you bought cheese. Okay, mazel tov, you have the cheese, all's well. But you weren't hungry and you didn't have the party. You bought it for a couple of days from now. Achar shleisha yamim, 3 days later, pascham, you open the bag of cheese, umatzah murukavis, recovering gadol. You find it's damaged, it's ruined, it's rotten. It's moldy. So the question is, where did this happen? Did it happen still in the seller's house, seller's rishus, or once you had it by you 3 days already, it developed in your house? He sold you a good product. So the halacha is, you should go around, do a little research, and find out by the people who make cheese, how fast, how long does it take for this amount of mold or this amount of worms to develop in cheese? Im yemru, if they say shenasa recovering beveis hamoicher, that this must have been happening already in the seller's home, nimtza shoya mekach tos, then the sale is canceled and you could get your money back, put the cheese in the garbage, get your money back. Im hadavar safik, if however it could be either way, it's up for grabs, it's in a doubt, then the halacha is hamaitzi mechaveroi olav haraya. This is a general rule that for me to give you money, you have to prove that I owe you the money. And you have to prove, so in this case, it depends where the money is. Did I pay for the cheese already? Then I'm trying to get my money back. So for me to get my money back, I need evidence, and I don't have evidence. Or if it's a case where I did not pay for it yet, and the moicher, the seller, is asking me for the payment, now the money is in my rishus. So he has to prove that it didn't happen in his possession. This is one halacha. The question comes that a couple of seifim earlier, we find a different halacha. We find hamoicher behema l'chaveiro, if somebody sells an animal to his friend. Why am I buying an animal? Because I want to shecht it. Sure enough, I shechted it. V'nimtzas treifa, and I found out that I can't even eat it because it's treif. So if it's obvious that the treifa happened in the seller's house, then he goes through how could you prove where it happened. Then it's a mekach tos. If the sale is canceled out, and he has to give me back the money. However, loy kana toich gimel yonim. If you cannot prove the evidence about when this disease, des treifa, happened, oz have a suffix, then it says clearly by the animal, the buyer has to prove that it happened earlier. So the question is, what is the difference between selling an animal that the buyer has to prove that it happened in the seller's possession, whereas by cheese, the buyer doesn't have, even the cheese, the buyer doesn't have to prove anything. If he hasn't paid for it, he doesn't have to give the money. This question is asked by the Smeh in Sif Katan Lamed Hey, and just shows you how everything is very practical. And the Smeh says, "V'loi dami lemoicha lechavere behema l'sheichta." You cannot compare these two cases, the case of the cheese and the case of the animal. Why? Because over here, the shiny hasam by animals, mamidim habehema achaskasa. The normal thing is that animals are healthy. Most of the animals are healthy. So you are trying to say that the disease started way earlier. A disease in an animal, a treifa in an animal, is not very, very common. So you have to prove it. Stam behema ain't it a trefus. A regular animal, there's no reason to believe it's treif, and therefore, if it became treif in your house, in your possession. However, gavina is cheese, and perhaps many other foods, they can't last forever. Foods, by its nature, becomes moldy if you don't eat it fast enough, if you don't take care of it fast enough. There is no fact about cheese that it's always good. The Raiv Gavinos, most of the cheeses, with time, darkon lahasliya. It's normal for it to get wormy, get moldy, etc. So in a case of the cheese, there is no proven fact either way. So it's a suffix. By the animal, most probably the animal was healthy. You're trying to change that, so you have to prove it. The buyer has to prove it.